Series, How to Turn Big Data into Big Insight. My name is Lee Simmons, and I am your moderator. And today's presentation is once again brought to you with our partner and presenter, Paul Ballew. Paul, of course, is D&B's Global Chief Data and Analytic Officer. He's responsible for the overall data and analytics strategy for the company, and you can see him frequently on the likes of CNN and Bloomberg Television. Today's webinar examines the big data opportunity and its related challenges, as well as how predictive analytics can help you turn data into insight. For those in the audience who have questions for Paul, just enter it into the Q&A panel at any time, and feel free to dive into the conversation on Twitter at #DNBIP. And now for today's presentation. Paul?
Thank you very much, Lee, and thanks to everybody for joining us. As Lee indicated, we look forward to responding to your questions and comments during today's session. We'll have a little bit of time at the end or afterwards. We are thrilled that you're joining us, and we want to be responsive to questions you may have. With regards to today's conversation, I want to spend a little time, once again, reinforcing some of the things we've talked about, namely our perspective on this big trend that everybody talks about, namely big data. We're, as we've talked to many of you about, focused on big insights. So I want to start off there by discussing where we see this heading, what are the key factors that drive success for companies in this marketplace by leveraging insights into action. Then secondly, I want to give you an update on where we're at in executing our strategy to help you be successful in that environment, because we are in execution mode. And a big part of that mode for us at Dun & Bradstreet is to better meet your needs. So we want to talk a little bit about that today, first on the data side, but a very, very large focus on the analytics side, because ultimately it's not just about more data, it's about data being turned into action through analytics, and then embedding that into your workflows and your decisioning activities, so all of you can be successful in a very competitive and complicated marketplace. As part of that discussion, I'm going to give you a sneak preview on the scores that we are launching, the new analytics products we're launching on May 10th. So circle that date on your calendar. It's coming to you. And then what we're going to do in subsequent webinars in the next few weeks is walk you through each one of the new analytics solutions coming into the marketplace, because we want to make sure you have a full grasp of what we've done, how we've done it, and importantly, the benefits those solutions have in your day-to-day activities. It also allows us to do a little bit of a test drive with all of you prior to launching. So as I mentioned, we wanted to spend a little time once again reinforcing our perspective on this trend everybody talks about in this dynamic known as big data. Without a doubt, it is a different world than when I started 3 decades ago. We are being flooded with all sorts of data opportunities to acquire. We are being flooded with opportunities to store. We are being flooded with opportunities to create new data. And that in and of itself has created a very interesting challenge for not only companies like us in the data insights and analytics business, but certainly all of you as you try to bring those assets together in a way that can make a difference in your business. It has become more complicated, I would argue, in the last few years, because not only are we dealing with the volume, but we're increasingly dealing with the type of data that is emerging. So for instance, by some estimates, 80% of all transactional data that we're all now acquiring is unstructured. So it's data that is challenging to match, to identify, to correctly utilize, and that just adds into this very big volume dynamic that we're experiencing each and every day. Of course, adding into that is the fun challenge of all the environmental elements that sit out there. The environmental elements of a sluggish economy, global competition, technological change, which means that if you can't harness the opportunity of bringing data and insight assets together, you're going to struggle in an environment where your competition is clearly taking advantage of those assets to deal with a very tough operating environment. This operating environment, likely to be unforgiving for the foreseeable future, will continue to put that emphasis. And really the success factor for any company is not to just sort of seminars to talk about big data or to create a repository of collecting more and more data, but it's the ability to bring all of those assets together to support your decision making so you can get a leg up on the competition, either through targeted activities on the growth side or by risk mitigation on the other side. So that's really for us the driving factor going forward with our strategy and our focus for all of you as a customer, is that there's this wonderful opportunity called data and analytic assets that we could have only dreamed of 2 decades ago. That opportunity is magnified when it can be harnessed because of the tough operating environment we're in. But the dynamic of doing that is really, really hard. It's a very tough task, and I know by dealing with many of our customers regularly just how difficult it is. So we at Dun & Bradstreet are focused once again on trying to help you fully leverage those assets so you can drive better decision-making in your environment. A couple months ago, we spent a little time talking about bringing this all together for you, and we talked quite a bit about the winning hand. And I just want to reinforce to all of you on today's session, as we do out there when I'm engaging with you on a regular basis, that if you're going to be successful in taking this great opportunity of data and analytic assets that we just could have not even dreamed of 2 decades ago, and turn that into action and then into a virtuous process, you have to do some things well. First, you clearly have to frame your problems correctly. Just acquiring data for data's sake is no longer the challenge. 30 years ago when I started, that was the challenge. We had to go find data. We had to go develop data. We had to go pull things out of the statistical aspects of the United States, or what used to be the census database called the Tiger database. We used to have staff librarians doing all that. Well, those days are over. So it's no longer a question of just getting more data. It's about pausing and investing the time to make sure you understand the business problems you're trying to solve for. Second thing is you got to leverage your transactional assets. And once again, this is very, very difficult for many companies to do. And when I say transactional assets, the secret increasingly and the point of differentiation in the marketplace is heavily wrapped around bringing in new actionable data sets. Contact data, certainly call center data, data from your sales force in terms of interactions, data from your marketing responses, data from your customer responsiveness to new opportunities and new engagements that you have. Third dimension is you got to get to this complete view. And as I will show you our capabilities that we are investing in, not surprisingly, a big part of the investment we're making remains in the identity resolution space. In fact, our strategy is largely identity resolution on steroids these days. It's about the fact that we need to help you with not only our data and insights, but your own data and insights get to this complete view of the customer and potential prospects. I would also argue that we need to emphasize another dimension if you're going to be successful, and that is an intimate and actionable view of customers and prospects. You have to be able to not only see them, but you have to understand them in unique and intimate ways so you can anticipate their needs, so you can get out in front of changing your relationship with them. A big part of this, of course, to do that, to get to that intimate and actionable view, is you've got to bring in the third-party component. I suspect many of you on the call spend a lot of money on third-party data. I know in my past life at General Motors and Nationwide, I spent dollar amounts that I would have never dreamed of when I started in 1985 doing this. And we always wondered, are we getting the full bang for the buck out of that investment we're making? In fact, for us at D&B, one of our core tenets is to make sure that we're helping you on the integration side, to make sure that you're leveraging the assets you're acquiring from us. It's equally important to do that across all the third-party vendors that you're doing business with. Once you've done all that, you've got to populate your insights clearly into what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. What's your decisioning tool? It's got to be embedded. So it's data, yes, but it's ultimately insight, and then it has to be action. And of course, last but not least, you've got to do this in a virtuous cycle. That's the winning hand. When I look at companies that are being successful in terms of leveraging data through analytics into insight into action, this is the path they're following. And this is a path that when it's instituted will make all the difference in the world in your optimization strategy, whether it's on marketing effectiveness, whether it's what you're doing on the sales front, whether it's investment, whether it's credit risk management, all of those components together. So that's our perspective on the world. The question for us today is how are we going to help you? So if you're trying to navigate these waters and implement this strategy in a meaningful way, we have to up our game. We have to step up our game. So I'm going to share with you today, as I indicated at the beginning, what we are doing and where we are at in our journey to up our game to help you. If you think about D&B's primary task to help you be successful in this environment, we really have to do three things. We have to make sure you have good basic information. I see you. I can identify entities. I can identify entities that have been created, and I can do so on a comprehensive global basis. Secondly, we have to help you start to make some sense of those entities, the knowledge of who they are and what they're doing, and those firmographic elements that will help you target them or manage your business effectively. But to do our job well, we also have to get to the point where we can predict their future behavior. And we can provide you that insight so then you have that complete, intimate, and actionable view of your customers, prospects, suppliers, all of those business relationships you're managing. So why we are spotlighting today the focus on data, but then quickly in analytics, is that to get to that third phase, we have to up our game on the data front, but more importantly on the analytics front. We have to provide you those solutions that are going to take us to that third level, that are going to allow you to predict and have the foresight that is absolutely essential in a very complex business environment. Many of you have seen how we're doing this. We have a global roadmap, and that global roadmap is over multiple years, and its focus is very much around going from data to insight into foresight into action. We are executing that roadmap starting this year. Actually, we started last year, in the back end of last year. And it starts by making key investments in our data and the predictive data elements we have, but then it's moving into analytics, and then of course it has the corresponding component of customizing those capabilities to your individual needs, as well as expanding that on a global basis. So it's a very aggressive roadmap around. We are substantially increasing our investment, and we're doing it because the bottom line is to help you achieve that goal state, that six-step process I laid out. We've got to step up and help you at key points in that process be successful. Yes, at the beginning, in terms of helping you formulate your questions and acquire the data to answer those questions, but clearly in the other phases that get into identifying customers, providing deep, rich, actionable insights, and then even embedding in your workflow in a virtuous cycle. So a lot going on for us. I'm going to show you a few things today on the data side, and also show you some standards that we're holding ourselves accountable to on the data side, because we have to deal with that, and then we'll make the transition on the analytics front as well. I've alluded to in numerous webinars and numerous customer meetings that this journey for us does start with a value statement of things we absolutely have to do to be successful. So we are making a big commitment on enterprise data governance and data security to meet not only your requirements, but to make sure we are focusing on data quality and analytic performance that is consistent with our standards that have to be in place to help our customers. Second part of this is we've got to get the foundation right. I don't have sufficient time today to talk fully about foundational data activities underway, but for many of you, we've had that discussion. Many of you have been very gracious in allocating your time and giving us feedback. I would encourage you to do that post this session. We want that ongoing quality assurance process to be robust with you, because we know that we have to get the data foundational elements right. We can't just jump to phase 3 or phase 4 of this journey without getting the first couple of phases right. And again, I'll give you a quick snapshot on what we're doing there this year, but going forward, we're looking for that active feedback loop so we're getting it right. Clearly, moving into predictive analytics is the phase that we are doubling down on, in fact, more than doubling down on right now, and that's back to giving you that knowledge to act upon with the precision, the speed, and the foresight that is required to make a difference in the marketplace. That's what great companies do. There is a reason why great companies have moved beyond CRM in the marketing space, and they're now into customer management actions and lead management actions. There's a reason why companies are focusing in a different way about how they're prospecting. There's a reason why great companies are taking their credit decisioning to the next level. The reason why companies are asking us about PRN and supply chain visibility, because they're using insights generated through predictive analytics to provide that degree of precision that they could not have imagined 5 years ago. And they're taking that and embedding that into their decision making, and ultimately that allows you to achieve this nirvana of actionable insight. So for us on the data side, a number of things occurring from an investment standpoint. We are focused very heavily on leveraging the assets we already have. So it's very important for us to make sure that we're doing the things right on that foundational basis. So our investments include investments in improving our identity data, our firmographic data, continuing to invest in linkage. Obviously, many of you know about our training program. So we will never ignore those components. As I mentioned, those table stake hygiene investments have to be a big part of the journey. Having said that, we do have to move into other areas to up our game to meet your needs if you're going to be successful in the journey. So our unique data capabilities we've historically had, such as detailed trade, our capabilities in identity resolution, very, very important. Then the exciting side for us, which is supporting our analytic journey we're on, is proprietary D&B insights. So D&B does have the benefit of having 170 plus years of history, as well as capabilities during that period of time that we've developed, muscle mass regarding activity and signals on companies, and unique identifiers or outcome measures like unable to confirm. Our strategy is to leverage those assets for your benefit, to make sure that we're bringing all of our proprietary capabilities together in our analytic solutions so you can benefit from all of that history, all of that activity, and you can have some unique capabilities in the marketplace to differentiate. And then not surprisingly, just like you, we're investing in alternative data sources as well. And we've been able to make some very good progress in the last year in bringing in new data sets that are important to helping us provide that foresight. It's a fascinating world out there where there's so much available to us that if we leverage our traditional capabilities, our proprietary capabilities, our great strengths in identity resolution, we can then bring in other transactional data that provides a deeper, richer perspective on entities in the U.S. as well as around the world. Key part of all of this, as I'm going to show you today, is we are holding ourselves accountable to even higher standards. To help you be successful, we have to hold ourselves to higher standards. So we'll show you today not only our measurements around foundational data, but also a new measure that we want you to hold us up against. And that measure is around the depth of data that we have on entities in these markets based upon the predictive and actionable insights those data elements provide. That's a key part of the strategy. That's a key part of what I want you to hold us accountable to. I want you to ask us questions about that. I want you to pressure test us so we can prove that the activities we are doing are not just creating top-line numbers that we can talk about, but what we're doing is providing you that rich, deep insight that you can take action against. So a lot going on the foundational side, a whole bunch of things. So before we get to the predictive side, we don't want to ignore the fact that on the foundational side, we do need to improve those capabilities as well. So a lot going on in terms of how we're holding ourselves up to standards. So we're looking at our accuracy measures, especially in areas like telephone numbers. The world's changed a lot in the last 10 years. If I could reach out to you, it'd be interesting to ask how many of you have a primary phone number now that doesn't have a landline attached to it. How many of you are so dependent on cell phones? Not to mention how we contact you on a regular basis because of your own contact process from an entity standpoint. Second thing we're doing is we are using analytics to help on the address side and making sure that we're triangulating and validating the accuracy there. We're doing similar things in terms of improving SIC codes. It's important for us to make sure that SIC codes are providing you that consistency and the accuracy you need in the decision-making standpoint. And then we have a very big push around what we call size dimensions, employee counts, as well as sales. Because on the sales and marketing side in particular, this is a very, very important dynamic. And interestingly enough, once again, we are using analytics to help improve our capabilities in these areas. So, get the foundation right? Absolutely. But then, as I mentioned, we've got to add the predictive insights, and that's about depth of data. So what I'm showing you is a measurement score that we're now showing to our customers regularly. And this shows you the active record in the U.S. And the active record in the U.S. segmented into 3 buckets. How many records do we have basic information on? We know you. We have some foundational knowledge about you. You could have just been a startup. You could have been a micro business. The second standard, or the second rung of the bar, is that decision support. We see you, we know you, we start to get some dimension of who you might be in the future and the predictiveness of your future actions. And then the third rung is we've got deep, rich insights around you. We call this the robust predictive level. This is the level where we have completed the journey in many regards. We see you, we know you, and we can predict your future behavior. We have applied quite a bit of science around this to make sure that every data element is gauge based upon the predictive value that it provides. And based on that, we roll up into a composite score for every single entity in the U.S. And then depending on that composite score, you end up in 3 buckets. Our push is to move as many entities in the U.S. and globally into that third rung. Because at that third rung, we see you, we know you, we can predict your future behavior with a high degree of certainty, and we can evolve into providing you foresight. I'm very pleased to say that in 2012, we moved over 6 million records out of the foundational ICU bucket up into the middle and up into the highest bucket. We are now at a point where 8 million entities in the U.S. we have deep, rich predictive insights around. And then we have another almost 9 million where we have good foundational insights and some predictive elements as well. The push will continue this year. We will make a substantial improvement and moving even further forward this year. I'm already seeing it with the first quarter. Importantly for us, and essential to our strategy, is that we want to move the average up as well. So we want to move in total towards that third rung, but within the existing rung, it's about pushing. So the fact that we have not only moved 5 million entities into that third bucket, but the average score in those entities moved up almost 7.5 points is quite extraordinary. It's one of the reasons when I show you our new analytic solutions today and the predictiveness of the analytic solutions, we're getting as much lift as we have. Using and holding ourselves accountable, using our assets and holding ourselves accountable to tough measures means that we can now do things in terms of analytic solutions we could not do a year ago. And that these capabilities will continue to get better and better and better as we continue to make our investment. So that's very exciting for us. And as we look at this measure is being rolled out globally as well. So we're holding ourselves accountable on a global basis, and it underpins our overall approach from a go-to-market standpoint. So a fun time along those lines. It's also a fun time because in the U.S. we are cracking one of the biggest issues that we had and everybody has, and that is shining light on small businesses. So as we look at the movement of those 5 million records into that third bucket, about 90% of those records that were moved were small businesses. That's quite extraordinary when I look back on it in my short tenure here that we were able to accomplish that. But that's what we have to do. And for those of you familiar with initiatives that we have underway, such as People in the Context of Business, that's an initiative of identifying the individual, the soul of the individual, and correctly associating that individual with the entity, that will move this forward even faster this year, where we're able to put that light on small businesses because the individual and the entity are not mutually exclusive. So I would encourage you when we come forward with the webinar on People in the Context of Business, please join us for that, because I'm absolutely confident that you will find that a very insightful part of the journey we're on. So that's on the data side. What does that all add up into? Well, as we've emphasized in this webinar and the previous webinar, it is about getting the foundational data right. It is about getting the predictive insights correct. But we have to turn data into actionable insights ultimately. And that's where our analytic capabilities and our analytic solutions come forward. So when you think about D&B, and you think about what we're in business to help you with, we're coming forward with 3 suites of capabilities. One are suite of capabilities we call predictors. Many of you would think about this as our traditional scores, like a delinquency score. We call it currently CCS, or FSS, the financial stress score. We believe that those predictors remain a core component of what we do in the marketplace. And we are very, very pleased that on May 10th, we will be launching 2 new scores, 2 new analytic solutions. One is what is a replacement for CCS. We're calling it the delinquency predictor. We call it a delinquency score around the rest of the world, so it's nice to be consistent on nomenclature. But we're coming forward with a very strong delinquency predictor. Substantial lift versus what we currently have, and it has held up across customer test portfolios, and I'll give you a glimpse today, including the potential application. Secondly, we're coming forward with a new analytic solution we call the total loss predictor. I'll explain a little bit more about this, but this is the first time anybody's attempted to do this. It is about first payment default as well as some malfeasance behavior. Moving beyond predictors, we are coming forward with a suite of capabilities we call ratings. And the most exciting part of that is the D&B Viability Rating. The D&B Viability Rating is the first multi-dimensional analytic solution that is brought to market. It has been brought to market by us and anybody else. And for all of you on the call, if you haven't invested a little bit of time on the D&B Viability Rating, you don't know what you're missing. I was on your side of the table for over 20 years, and this would have been a dream for me to receive because of all of the applications associated with this diagnostic. We call it internally our Swiss Army knife. I'll give you a little preview on it today, but we're going to come back around very shortly and do a full webinar briefing for you on the viability rating. And then last but not least, in terms of our suite of capabilities, we are continuing to develop our muscle mass in the area of custom analytics. We know many of you, when you get up in the morning, are looking for help on specific business problems that an off-the-shelf solution will not meet. We are focused on those areas that are very close to our core competency: credit risk, overall risk, so think supply chain risk, as well as on the marketing side, the ability to target customer interactions and prospect interactions in a meaningful way. So we have a lot going on in that space. One of the real benefits that we now have from the investments we're making on predictive insights and analytics is the extension of that into custom analytics to meet your unique needs in the marketplace. And that is our commitment. If an off-the-shelf solution does not meet your needs, we are committed to provide a custom solution or a customized solution to address your needs. So it's a fun time. We're very excited about this. As I mentioned, in the marketplace right now, we're feeling terrific about how these initial tests are going. So if you think about the lift we're getting either in terms of capture rate at that 15% rate, or the overall lift we're getting in relationship to the current delinquency score, it's been quite extraordinary for us. So right now, pretty consistent across customer portfolios, the new delinquency score is giving us a predictive lift in terms of bad rate in excess of 20%. On some portfolios, it's about 30%. When we combine that with the new no-pay or total loss predictor, we're getting lift closer to 40%. And when you bring all of these analytic solutions, the three combined, including the viability rating, we're getting lift of excess of 50%. What we like is the analytic solutions are very additive. They help you on the credit side. They also help you on the marketing side in a very additive way, because they provide a complete and comprehensive picture of customers and prospects to an extent that has not been done in the marketplace. It tells you about that customer's ability to pay on time. It tells you about the customer's ability and willingness to pay at all. And then it tells you quite a bit about the viability of that entity 12 months out into the future. And as you're managing risk, as you're trying to market and reach out to customers, we believe that that provides a comprehensive view. We also believe that by leveraging analytics, you can get greater separation. So we've got a couple of examples we're sharing with you today about the ability to segment out and target. And that segmenting allows you to have a higher approval rate, for instance. Or it allows you to identify risks that would be unidentifiable or would not have been identified to the same degree of segmentation that existing tools in the marketplace provide. That's what's very, very powerful, and I always like the lower right chart, which just shows you the separation across that approval rate distribution just by incorporating the delinquency predictor, much less the suite of scores and your capabilities. And not surprisingly, that's because we're getting predictive lifts with regards to bad. We're also getting greater clarity on making sure that we're not identifying false negatives. So lots of consistency in terms of lift. We're showing you an example of CCS 9, which is the new score we're introducing on May 10th, versus CCS 8 versus CCS 7, and the ability to pull through in terms of the percentage of delinquent companies that are captured in each one of those scores. So we're very proud of that. Again, that's a reflection of what we've done analytically, the data investments we've made, and we really feel that incorporating this in terms of your day-to-day decisioning will help. And I'm showing an example on the screen of the difference in bringing in those new tools and the ability to segment that much further, and how that in turn results in revenue impacts and the overall ROI. And we are committed to providing you that level of transparency, as well as the ROI tools to adjust against these dimensions. So we're very, very pleased with the development of those capabilities so you can make better decisions in the marketplace. So beyond delinquency, we are very excited about total loss as well. We started to go down this journey by trying to tackle the fraud issue, to be very direct. When everybody was telling us we need a fraud score. Well, when you talk to all of you on the phone as well as our other customers, what are you really looking for? Now, fraud's a tough thing to do. And tackling fraud in a comprehensive way is not easy. So you have to tackle fraud in many cases through custom approaches. And we build custom fraud models for customers today. We also have a consortium coming together that we call our fraud repository or fraud consortium. That's really the only way you can tackle it. But there is something you can tackle. You can tackle the ability of identifying first payment defaults and also fictitious businesses or shell companies. And what we've done by testing 20,000 variables is we have created a new predictor we call total loss predictor. And it is a very powerful diagnostic for knockout purposes, for reject usage, you name it. It provides that screening capability that allows you to identify inability or willingness to pay. And it also allows you to therefore start to gauge intent, malfeasant behavior. We tend not to use the word fraud because it has very strong legal connotations. For us, as we look at the testing of total loss, very strong complementary capabilities to delinquency because many companies that may not have a favorable delinquency score, in many cases have a very favorable total loss score. You can get some examples as well of the reverse. So we felt it was appropriate to address the question that you're looking for from a credit management standpoint or from another risk mitigation standpoint, and that is the ability to identify bad behavior and not necessarily fraud, which is a very complicated thing to do. Fraud is addressed best through custom analytics and through custom solutions. And then last but not least in our repertoire is the viability rating. You heard it a few moments ago in my voice and my enthusiasm for this rating. We are rolling this out on May 10th. It has been a labor of love for us over the last 10 months in this journey. And what I'm very proud of is that this new capability reflects your input. It provides you what you look for from us. Tell us whether or not this company is viable. Also, provide us transparency in terms of how much data and information you have on this entity. And then help us associate that in a way in terms of a grouping. So if you think about the viability score, it is focused on predicting whether or not this entity will be viable 12 months from now. And it's not viable based upon just OB or bankruptcy. It includes a D&B proprietary capability known as unable to confirm. Most small businesses, many private businesses, never make a declarative statement that they are out of business. So building an analytic tool to predict bankruptcy has a very narrow application. This has a complete application across the entire active universe because it's looking at whether or not that entity will exist and be fully operational a year from now. What we've also done with this score is we've given you two lenses. There's a viability component that looks at every entity versus the entire active universe. We're calling that the viability score. But you also have the ability to compare against 4 buckets of portfolio. So you can compare against peer groups for the first time. So for us, the applications, which is why we call it Swiss Army knife, just this, are almost numbing. You can use this for credit management and underwriting purposes, use this for sales and marketing, you can use this for supply chain management and supply chain risk. Who knows? There's lots of different solutions out there. The second dimension is providing the transparency. So you will receive from us on May 10th, in consuming the viability rating, clarity on the depth of data that we have on that entity. If it's an A, B, or C, we have a lot of information. We have a lot of predictive insights on this entity. If you get down into the lower letters of the alphabet, less so. We may know them, we may see them. And on top of that, we will also give you special designations leveraging our internal data set where there are special circumstances like business deterioration or bankruptcy or unable to confirm. So you can see clearly that there is a level of transparency, but you can also leverage some other data elements. An early test with some customers is fascinating that this depth of data indicator is proving to be a very good data element that companies can use in their own scoring models and in their own decisioning by itself. We never really thought of it as a data element. We thought of it as our commitment to providing transparency, but it's proving to be a very good data element and a very good predictive data element. And then last but not least, we were requested by many of you to provide a company profile or a demographic bucket. So there is a fourth dimension in the viability rating that gives you that as well. Exciting, yes, because we allow us to honor our commitment to you, to provide insights, to be transparent. But we're also very excited because we are getting substantial separation as we pull the viability score through. So the fact that the highest risk bucket has a bad rate of 65% and the lowest risk bucket has a bad rate of less than 0.5% is tremendous separation. We're also seeing this based on company size. We've looked at this for small businesses, large businesses, mid-sized businesses, and we are getting an equal amount of separation. Again, if you go back to my opening comments about turning data into insight into action, I firmly believe that all of us, as we try to leverage this environment of big data into decision making, are going to require greater and greater separation and segmentation of customers and prospects and opportunities. This is our dream. It's not about having 4 risk buckets. It's about getting that separation into your decisioning. It's the same thing on sales and marketing. When you think about the ultimate goal of prospecting, it's about targeting. But our commitment has to be to give you tools that are going to give you greater segmentation and separation so you can target with more precision. That's what the universe is requesting. That's what the universe is looking for us to do. So a fun time, certainly. I want to wrap up by also continuing to extend the fact that we realize that an off-the-shelf solution is not always going to fit. So we are focused on also providing custom solutions. We've made a very big investment in this area with a number of areas of core competency. Supply chain risk analytics, we have solved the tier N problem, which is visibility as well as risk. We're very pleased with that. Global credit risk and building custom models on that front. All the things we're doing in sales and marketing to help you target and interact with your customers in the most meaningful way, as well as target and interact with prospects in the most meaningful way. And then some specialized capabilities we're doing in the area of stress testing, remediation analytics, and the like. It's a fun time for us. We're very, very pleased with that. I would also stress that we're getting a lot of questions and a lot of requests to help customers get to this complete and intimate and actionable point of view, and that's all the capabilities we have in identity resolution. So a fun time to do what we've done. I started this journey 29 years ago. I pinch myself every single day when I think about what's available at my disposal today to help make better decisions. It's not easy to fully bring those assets together. We realize that. I am convinced after doing this as long as I have that that 6-step process is the only success formula that we know. We have to live up to our commitment to help you go through that 6-step process and bring forward capabilities that will allow you to be successful. We feel that the combination of our foundational investment, leveraging crown jewels such as identity resolution, and then bringing forward deeper, more predictive data attributes and turning that into insight through analytics is the right journey for us to be on at D&D. That's our commitment to you. What I would encourage you and ask you passionately to do is put it to the test. Make sure that we are living up to our commitment. That's the one thing that I want us to do. We need to make sure that we're helping you go through this journey, and ultimately our success is dependent on your success in the marketplace. It's exciting. May 10th is a very important date for us. Our goal over the next few weeks is to offer these types of webinars for you so you fully understand what we're doing, the capabilities we're bringing forward. And by doing that, I'm very, very confident we'll pass the test. And we'll help you be successful in the marketplace. And we will get off the kitschy expressions such as big data. And we will focus our time and attention to insight, to action, and ultimately to making a difference in the lives of your customers, which in turn allows you to be successful. So that's the update from our end. You'll see on the screen all the future activities we have going forward. So we're going to start off, not surprisingly, with the viability rating, and then walking through our other capabilities leading up into that very important date on May 10th, where these capabilities will start to be available to you. Once again, thank you for your time today. I know how busy everybody is. We deeply appreciate the time that you invest with us. Thank you for your business. Thank you for your relationship. And if there's anything I can personally do to help you as you're going through your journey, please do not hesitate to contact us, because once again, we care deeply about your success. So I'm going to stop there, turn it back over to Lee, and we're going to see if we can field a few questions, respond to a few comments.
Thanks, Paul. This is great. And once again, for those in the audience, if you do have a question, just enter it into the Q&A panel right now. Paul, first off, for those of us who are interested in actually seeing how these ratings and how these tools work, will there be demos or training sessions available in the future once these are rolled out?
Yes, we're doing a number of things. So one of the reasons we're going through the webinar series is it's very applied in nature. So we're focusing on the customer webinar series to not only educate you about our methodology and our approach, but to give you the application therein and some suggestions on use cases. We're also enabling our field organization to have those conversations with you and to make sure that we're providing you the level of support you need so you can take full advantage of the capabilities.
Great. And in terms of folks who already have DNBI, are these predictive scores that will be part of that existing tool?
So the delinquency predictor will be in DNBI. The viability rating will be in DNBI Core. The total loss predictor is available through packets. So it's a separate delivery mechanism. Given where we're at in DNBI, that was the approach we took in terms of our go-to-market. So the good news is 2 out of 3, yes. And then the third one is available and can be hopefully embedded into your decisioning rather easily.
Great. And for our Canadian friends, of course, I'm sure that they are probably eagerly anticipating some of these scores as well. There are probably some customers who feel that the level of predictive analysis is not quite on par with what folks get in the U.S. Do you see that improving with the rollout of these new tools?
Yes, it's a big investment for us in 2013 to upgrade our capabilities in Canada to the U.S. gold standard we set. This year, right now in Canada, we are making a substantial investment in our foundational data, overall data quality, our predictive insights, and we've made tremendous strides here in the last 6 months or so. We are also in the process of building new predictive solutions, new analytic solutions in Canada as we speak. So we will be coming forward in a future date, giving you a full update. We're evaluating some new capabilities in Canada that are very, very exciting. So the answer is absolutely. Canada is at the top of our list, along with other markets around the globe. So we are rolling out new capabilities this year in the UK, Australia, the Netherlands, Belgium, Ireland, and we are making key investments in markets around the globe. Identity resolution investments in Korea, Russia, Germany, foundational and predictive data investments in markets as diverse as China, Vietnam, other parts of Europe. So it's a very busy time for us globally, but Canada's way, way up at the top of the list to make the investments and then roll out those predictive solutions going forward.
Great. And Paul, talking about the viability rating, particularly in the realm of sales and marketing, are you able to expand at all on the use cases surrounding that? For instance, can the viability rating actually help predict which customer will buy in the future based on past behavior?
So the viability rating has all sorts of incredible use cases, as I've mentioned a few times. It's our Swiss Army knife. So it's very useful on the credit risk management side because it's a very strong additive component to risk predicting. On the sales and marketing side, we have customers experimenting with it as a pre-screen, especially for small businesses and for alternative channels in terms of marketing and sales because of its predictive value in doing that. So it can be used as a pre-screen tool. It's helping us in our supply chain analytics. It's helping us distribution, especially independent distribution investments and targeting. because it can be applied to the robustness and health of that independent distribution channel that you may be managing through. So its applications are every day. I'm amazed in talking to customers about new ideas. It's being used for going back and reevaluating rejects that you turn down. So it's been very, very helpful. It helps some in improving response rates from a direct marketing standpoint. So it has lots and lots of applications. And the reason it's so strong is, A, it's giving a more complete view of small businesses in the U.S. than we've ever had before. But then B, it brings forward dimensions that have never really been developed previously. The value scores have really tried to identify a very narrow population group in a very unique event, bankruptcy. If you look at other scores, those scores have been very much focused around will I can time. If you look at other diagnostics, they're more foundational diagnostics. In this case, this is bringing all of the D&B assets together, all of our proprietary assets, to segment out the entire universe based upon the likelihood that this entity is going to be existing relative to another entity from an operational standpoint 12 months from now. And then you add into that the predictive insights of how much transparency we have on an entity. That is an insight in and of itself. If D&B lacks transparency on the entity, that's not surprisingly telling you something. What it's telling you is up to your individual use case. That's the sort of dynamic we have to think about with this new capability.
Thanks, Paul. I think we have time for a couple more questions. Say I am an existing customer with scorecards in place. How do these new predictive scores necessarily impact the scoring cards that I have now?
Sure. Well, we will sunset old scores over time. So we respect the fact that your decisioning environment, just because we flip a switch doesn't mean you can flip a switch immediately. So we are taking that into account. We'll work through your sales teams will work through that transition. What I encourage all of our customers to do is to realize that viability is new and total loss is new. So bringing them into your decisioning environment matters a lot, and we want to invest time. In terms of the delinquency predictor, I strongly encourage working with us to help you transition forward, because the new delinquency predictor is substantially better than what we've done in the past, but better than anything we've seen in the marketplace. It is that strong in terms of its predictive insight.
Great.
We also look, by the way, at all of these solutions, Lee, and for the benefit of our customers, as these solutions are a great opportunity for us to help you manage big data. Because instead of us just throwing data attributes at you and dumping more pounds of data at you, what we're doing is we're giving you a data attribute, namely an analytic solution, the output of the analytic solution, which brings all those attributes together in the strongest predictive insight we can provide to you. And that is a very, very big paradigm shift, because we believe that if we just throw blocks and blocks and blocks of data at you, that doesn't solve your problem. So our focus is to make sure in your workflow tools and your scorecards that you're fully leveraging the best data element we can give you, and that is a score. So that data element is extremely valuable, bringing together all the assets of Dun & Bradstreet to make better decisions.
Paul, talking about foundational data, is D&B having plans to implement controlled vocabularies for specific cities or states or province names? For instance, some people might find that current data has spellings that vary, so that makes matching customer data obviously more difficult.
Yes, it does. So all of those things are things we're looking at. We look at things continuously, but they are certainly in scope this year as well as next year to continue to try to address. Nomenclature is always a fun thing. We're also making sure we're making the investment in government data to fully leverage that as well. So that does require some investment foundationally on our part.
And last but not least, you mentioned a whole roll call of countries just a couple minutes ago. Is DNBI available now in all of these other countries that you just mentioned?
It's not. It's available in some. Obviously, there are other solutions that are out there globally We are working through both our global data insight and analytic roadmap and our global product roadmaps right now to make sure that we are providing you as much consistency globally as possible. So I would say watch this space going forward.
Great. Well, any final thoughts from your end, Paul, before we sign off for the day?
We should bring it all back around and once again reinforce the things we've talked about today. Number one, the challenging, crazy world we're all living in, it's important to make decisions with more precision to see all of the dimensions that you have to live with each and every day. The opportunities to generate actionable insights are greater than ever, but it does require investment, and it does require bringing all those assets together in a way that's in a virtuous cycle. We've reflected long and hard about that in the last year as we're executing our strategy. It's very, very important for us to bring forward solutions that will allow you to fully leverage those assets and make a difference in your business. We're thrilled we're at this point right now because we are less than 30 days away bringing forward new capabilities that we believe are game-changing. And those capabilities will allow you to turn data into insight, into action, and help improve your decisioning and help differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Our commitment against that backdrop over the next few weeks is to invest the time to explain to you what we're doing and the value that it should have in your day-to-day business. We encourage you to participate in those sessions. I also encourage you to take us out for a test, put us to the test, so we can prove the incremental value that we're bringing forward to help you in your decisioning. At the end of that, my final request to you is please communicate with us often. Please make sure we understand your needs. Please make sure we understand your concerns so we can take action against it. So I'm going to call it a wrap on that. Based upon that, thank you guys once again for spending the time, and Lee, we'll wrap it up from here.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks again, everybody in the audience, for these great questions, and a special thanks to Paul Ballew for sharing his insights on big data. And be sure to join us next Tuesday, April 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next edition of our Informed Perspective series, How to Assess Business Viability in Today's Complex Economy. And with that, from all of us here at D&B, have a great day.